Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on the tourism sector. This is in light of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi actually holding a phone call with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, both agreeing on resuming direct flights from Russia to Egypt and vice versa that will be mainly targeting the Red Sea airports. And joining us here tonight in the studio to shed more light on this issue is Dr. Yahya Abdel-Eder, the Tourism Council. Dr. Abdel-Eder, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our topic of discussion, let's check out one of the stories making the news today. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi directed today the use of the latest irrigation methods to make the best use of water. This came during his meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and the specialized ministerial group to follow up on the implementation of the national projects for land reclamation in central and northern Sinai. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Moradi said that during the meeting, the president ordered the continuation of development efforts in the Sinai Peninsula and increasing the cultivated land to allow for the establishment of new communities. This would be part of the country's strategy to expand the agricultural area all over the country. This was the main story making the news today, but now let's turn our focus and attention to the topic of discussion. Let's check out this report regarding President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi receiving a phone call from the Russian President Vladimir Putin, agreeing on resuming the direct flights between both countries, and we'll be right back.
لازم نعترف إن 25 يناير و30 6 مش تضاعف، بقى غير مسبوق. من 6 سنين قلت لكم إن إحنا هنبنيها مع بعض. خلونا نحط ايدينا في ايدين بعض. احنا لا نبغي الا البناء والتنميه والسلام. تحيا مصر، تحيا مصر، تحيا مصر.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi discussed bilateral relations with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in a telephone call, where the two leaders agreed to resume direct flights between Russia and Egypt's airports. The presidency said in a statement that these airports include Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh. Presidential spokesperson Bassam Moradi added in the statement that the decision to resume flights to Red Sea airports was based on joint cooperation between Egypt and Russia, and also came according to what the Egyptian airports provide in tourist attractions, from safety and comfort to incoming tourists. During the phone call, President el-Sisi welcomed the decision to resume flight movements between the two countries, expressing that this decision will push forward the bilateral relations and will boost the movement of tourists between them. For his part, the Russian president expressed how his country was keen on boosting the different aspects of strong bilateral relations with Egypt, praising the long partnership between the two countries, as well as the recent achievements Egypt made in the economic and social developments, in addition to the national mega projects and developing infrastructure fields. The statement stated that Putin also stressed that his country was counting on Egypt's pivotal role in stabilizing the region. The two presidents also discussed the latest developments about a number of regional issues, above them the situation in Libya, along with developments in the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. President el-Sisi and Putin also discussed the joint cooperation projects between the two countries, including the Russian investment zone in the Suez Economic Zone and the Doba nuclear plants. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, starting off our discussion with Dr. Abdelkader Al-Ruwais. Doctor, now, this news has been very much anticipated. Everybody was hoping that it would happen sooner rather than later. And today, the President Sisi spoke to President Putin, and they agreed on resuming direct flights between both countries. How important and significant is such a phone call and an agreement?
Well, thank God this phone calls has been exchanged and went through, and the outcome is that we are so fortunate that inbound Russian flights will be back to Egypt soon, like soon as next May, inshallah. And it had been like on hold like for around 6 years.
Yes.
So they are targeting, as usual, you know, like they are in love with the Egyptian Red Sea resorts, namely Sharm el-Sheikh and Hagara. And that's why the Egyptian authorities are going to allocate special terminals for them in both international airports in Hagara and Sharm el-Sheikh. And the Russian consul, Mr. Forbayev, is going to be holding like a ceremony and festival for them on arrival next month. And at one point, you know, like the Russian travel to Egypt accounts for like 25 to 30% of the total international arrivals to Egypt. Namely, that's around 3 million visitors per year. So looking forward after this long hold that, inshallah, as of next May, they will resume their charter flights as usual. And part of them is going to take local, you know, like transportation to arrive to Cairo, visit the Cairo Museum, Saqqara, Necropolis, the great pyramids of Giza. And they can add now to their programs an itinerary Al-Fustat, National Museum for Civilization, and then go back. So they will, other groups will be traveling to Luxor from Hagara and from Sharm el-Sheikh, spend like a night and do, you know, like the Valley of the Kings, Al-Karnak, and then go back. So they will be covering both beach travel and resorts, and then doing the cultural tourism as well.
Yes. Well, everyone's been expecting or hoping for the resumption of these flights between Egypt and Russia for some time now. And it happens and it takes place at the time during the coronavirus pandemic, where the whole world is actually kind of worried and very cautious about traveling and resuming their travel and tourism activities. How important and what sort of message does Egypt give to the rest of the world, hosting millions of tourists, as you've mentioned, coming from Russia and the Balkan area during such a critical time in the world?
Well, actually, since March of last year, we've been receiving, you know, like visitors and vacationers, travelers, at least from 15 to 20 countries. I mean, like, we've been currently still receiving charter flights from Poland, from Belarus, from Ukraine, from Serbia, from Romania, from Moldova, Estonia, Latvia, the whole world, Switzerland and Germany as well. They come through charter flights, which is very affordable and budget-wise for them. So this is one aspect. Again, we have like to our dues, you know, like the Ministry of Tourism has been, you know, like sanitizing and providing medical services and attention to 250 hotels in Hagara. That's why we've been feeling safely, you know, like, apart from that, the Ms. Ghada Shalabi, Associate Minister, she has been for 2 days in Hagara and Sharm el-Sheikh to make sure that the whole crew and personnel, human resources in both resorts have been vaccinated and immunized. Because you have to guarantee that your staff, you know, is going to be, you know, like safe and kosher, you know, like to handle visitors coming from the from Russia and from other destinations as well. At least there's like 250 hotels in Sharm el-Sheikh that has been sanitized and, you know, like in perfect hygiene shape to accept visitors. Meanwhile, you know, like the IATA a month ago developed the IATA Immunity Passport, that guarantees for travelers that is going to travel safely without obstruction international airports and have direct access. Notably, that has been vaccinated twice. Another, again, we have the African Union developed the Trusted Travel Pass, which will carry the same, significance, as well as there is a green passport as well. So worldwide, as far as I know, there's like 3 or 4 countries that has been totally immunized: United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, and New Zealand. So I was talking to Dr. Ashraf Moussa yesterday, and he told me at the Heathrow Airport there's a gate, labeled New Zealand. Any traveler from New Zealand, he will go through accessibly, with no checking, because the whole country has been immunized twice. So that shows, how, more travelers will be coming worldwide due to the fact that there is more vaccinations worldwide. 60% of the German population has been immunized and vaccinated twice.
Yes.
So with this vaccination process, processing and on that pace, and even in Egypt, medical staff, workers in the hospitality industry, the public at large, they have been receiving free vaccination, which we have to thank the government for.
Yes. Well, what about the hotel business and the hotel sector? As you've mentioned, about 250 hotels are ready now, but we're probably going to be receiving millions of tourists now, and not just from Russia, but from the Balkan area and maybe other countries as well would be very much encouraged to come. The hotel business started off with only 25% capacity and then 50% capacity. Are we going to increase the capacity, the percentage of the capacity? Are we going to increase the number of hotels receiving potential incoming tourists?
Actually, I've been reviewing this with a number of tour operators, and it's not recommended at all that you, augment or increase or double the capacity, because you have to be very careful. Still, we're living in a very sensitive era worldwide. Some countries are still locked down, like in France, in Europe, everything is shut down. So really, we are very advantageous, and really adventurous, to launch these activities of opening our destinations. But we've been working hard, following the World Health Organization and the IATA regulations, and the World Tourism Organization as well, to sanitize and to monitor, the healthy regulations and the criteria for the staff, for the equipment, for the property, and for visitors as well.
Yes. Well, Egypt has been used to receiving a lot of Russian tourists throughout the decades. But now, after the resumption of these flights and after or during the coronavirus pandemic, do we need to have any sort of marketing campaigns or promotional campaigns to Russia to help refresh their hunger and their desire to come to Egypt? Or as soon as they hear the news that the direct flights are resuming, so everyone's going to show up?
Definitely you are correct, because Minister of Tourism, this week he has been holding meeting with Ms. Lamia Kamel. She is a new associate, and they are developing, our promotional campaigns, for example, like road shows, like farm trips. They have to travel, world capital, potential ones, and promote, new issues and new developments in Egypt. Few weeks ago, on the 3rd of April, we had the royal parade of the kings and the queens of Egypt, and it was sensational and like an extravaganza for the whole world. So we have to build up on our successes and our archaeological findings. So this has to go through with professional campaigns and associations that the ministry is hiring and monitoring, and they will be doing it on a global basis soon, inshallah.
Yes. Dr. Abdel-Qadir, you've mentioned the Golden Mummies Parade that took place a few weeks ago. How much of an impact did this have in terms of marketing and promoting Egypt as a touristic destination within this very critical time during the pandemic?
Really, it was, so adventurous, because during this time of the pandemic worldwide, you know, like we were the only country to do something on such, you know, like, like presumptuous scale, you know, like, it was like an extravaganza and, you know, like a fantasy as well. And it was so well executed that the whole world, I was reviewing the media, they were, you know, like they called it, you know, like sensational. Some compared it to the Cleopatra movie, you know, like Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, you know, like that was done in the 60s with its, you know, like presumptuous, you know, like campaigns and parades. And some compared it to like the Disneyland parades because it was so extravaganza and so well performed with the music, the performance, the opening, and everything. So we have to build up on our successes. For example, you know, like we have the world-class Nader Abbasi and his entourage and his assembly. You know, like I guess, you know, like Minister of Tourism, you know, like with the associates, they have to develop a series of concerts for this group to travel to potential destinations, to revive their memories, and to, you know, like give them enough, you know, like material and enough firepower to start booking their flights as soon as airlines, you know, like are, you know, like operating between Egypt and world destinations as well.
Yes.
This is something, you know, like we have to build on really ultimately, yes.
Well, the Euromonitor International has actually chosen Hurghada and the Red Sea as one of the top 100 destinations all over the world. Even Ras Mohammed is chosen as one of the top 3 diving spots all over the world. Everybody comes to the Red Sea, Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada for the beach resort, but at the same time, the cultural tourism is flourishing now even more than ever with another opening and inauguration of a museum at Hurghada. So now the Red Sea is not only a beach tourism destination, but also it could include the cultural museum as well.
Well, that was, you know, like a joint venture between private sector and Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. And really we have to launch, you know, like a series of these, you know, like ventures, because worldwide many museums are private collections. For example, in Los Angeles, it's like the Getty Museum, you know. Actually, the major sponsor is Paul Getty himself. So we have to, we shouldn't, you know, like be like heavy on the government to develop things like education, culture, medical, and, you know, like museums and attractions as well. So we have to provide incentives for the private sector to develop museum, and this is the first joint venture between private sector, and we opened another Sharm el-Sheikh museum. We opened Kafr Sheikh as well, and really the grand opening of the Fustat National Museum for Civilization, we were receiving like around 5,000 to 7,000 visitors per day. So this is phenomenal, you know. And this museum is going to develop the whole area, like old Cairo, you know, like with the Fustat, Al-Askar, Qata'a, and Cairo, and the government is spending heavy budget in developing Tahrir Square and the Qahira Khediviya, downtown Cairo, with, you know, like renovating all the classic and Baroque buildings, which is very attractive, and visitors like to come and visit the attractions and see old Cairo as well.
What about the Grand Egyptian Museum? It is one of the most anticipated museums to be inaugurated later this year. Do you feel that this will also really help boost the marketing and promotion of Egypt as a touristic destination?
Definitely, you know, like I receive, you know, like responses from many travel writers worldwide, photographers, you know, like world, you know, like changing, like National Geographic, and as well there's a Abu Dhabi now National Geographic, apart from the major one in Washington D.C., and they all love to come and make a preview because they have to report it to their viewership, you know, like about this magnificent, you know, like, and this is a rare icon worldwide. They like to write about it, and I think the Minister of Tourism have to consider this, you know, like I've been in contact with them because I know a number of the world travel writers worldwide in different languages, in Latin America, in Europe, and Asia. They like to come and make reports about the preparation and anticipation of the grand opening of the Egyptian Museum.
Yes. Well, we are getting ready to receive the Russian tourists, but How far, with your assessment and your expertise, do you view the performance of the domestic tourism here in Egypt over the past year or so? Was the Egyptian tourist moving around domestically in different governorates and different resorts around the country, was it able to sustain enough economic break even, at least, for the tourism sector and the hotel business?
Frankly, like the only region that was, rendering this service was just like the Red Sea resorts, because they have like a 50% capacity, which is nearly like a break-even point, and they can generate, like reasonable profit. But you have to work in full capacity. But this region is very attractive, as you mentioned, for beach resorts, for culture, for diving. And remember, last year there was Telegraph and National, economists, they were all talking about the Red Sea mountain trails, like that, with, checked by Samra. And so this is, every day, like we have a new attraction that the whole world like to come and visit and portray. So with more, attractions and more services, like, for example, like this area, and Fustat was neglected over hundreds of years. Now, it's a beautiful now. It's an icon, and many people like to go and visit it. And then we have many attractions as well, like in Manuel Palace, Manisterli. I think at one point we have to perform and develop a plan for like a Cairo tour, which within you can check about 5-6 destinations. Last week we opened the beautiful fine arts, like Mahmoud Khalil Museum in Giza. So we have an excellent combination of culture, antiquities, art, and Beaux-Arts. We have to work on this and to develop as a niche market, so we have different categories of visitors that would like to come and enjoy the culture and deep antiquities of Egypt.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of Tourism and Antiquities, Tarek Al-Anani, has stated that the touristic resorts are ready to receive the millions of Russian tourists in the coming period. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Minister of Tourism and Antiquities Khalid Al-Anani said that Egyptian tourist resorts are ready to receive tourists from Russia and from all over the world, amid Russian plans to resume flights to the Egyptian seaside resorts. Al-Anani said that the Red Sea resorts witnessed a remarkable increase in tourist flows since they were reopened in July, after a brief closure due to the coronavirus pandemic. During a meeting with the Russian ambassador in Cairo, Georgy Borisenko, he added that the increase reflects the visitors' trust in the safety of Egyptian tourist destinations, thanks to the applied coronavirus precautions. Borisenko, on his part, stressed that Egypt is an important destination for Russian people, who are fond of the ancient Egyptian civilization, as it is included in the Russian education curricula. An aviation source has told the Russian news agency Interfax that charter flights may resume to Egyptian resorts after May 10th. This came as Deputy Minister of Tourism and Antiquities for Tourism Affairs, Gheda Shalabi, said on Monday that Egypt expects over 1 million Russian tourists to visit in the country in 2021. She also expressed hope that the number of tourists coming to Egypt would reach about 60% of the numbers of 2019, with the continuation of vaccinations and the opening of Russian tourism, and that revenues range between 6 and 7 billion US dollars. Egypt received 13.1 million tourists in 2019, generating revenues of 13.03 billion US dollars. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, revenues in 2020 fell by about 70% to $4 billion, with just 3.5 million tourists entering the country. Egypt's tourism sector in 2019 accounted for approximately 12% of the country's GDP.